everybody. So we're going to answer some questions regarding Tower of Babel, Noah times, and just kind of go into that, okay? So did people really forget the flood? It's likely not that they forget it intellectually, but rejected its meaning spiritually. Okay, so the Bible never says that humanity forgot the flood. It shows that human always rebelled anyway, even with living witnesses. Genesis 8 and 11, Matthew 24, 37 through 39. As it was in the days of Noah, Jesus implies people knew judgment was real. They just ignored it. And why that matters is humans don't need ignorance to rebel. They need pride, power, and fear. Was Noah alive at the time of the Tower of Babel? Yes, it was very likely that he was alive due to the timeline. Okay, so the flood happened, right? So Noah dies 350 years after the flood, which happened in Genesis 9, 28 through 29. Babel happened 100 to 200 years after the flood. So Noah would have had like a 100-year gap in between there. So he was alive. So the tower builders were Noah's children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And if Noah was alive, why didn't he stop it? The Bible gives no record of Noah being involved. Possible reasons, which most scholars debate. Noah was not a part of that group. Babel seems to involve a specific lineage in region, not all humanity. Genesis 11 and 2, they migrated from the east and found a plain in Shinar. This implies movement by a subgroup, which wasn't everybody. Noah warned them, okay? They ignored Noah. This fits the behavior perfectly and matches later biblical patterns where prophets warn, people ignore, judgment follows, which was in Hebrews 11 and 7. Noah is a preacher of righteousness, okay? Noah withdrew from power structures. Past flood Noah is portrayed as a farmer, a patriarch, not a king or a ruler. Babel was about centralized political power, not family life. Who actually built the Tower of Babel? Not everyone on earth. Genesis 11, 1 through 4 said, they let us build a city. The language suggests a unified leadership and a dominant group, possibly royal or priestly elite-like candidates. Genesis 10 and 8 through 12, Nimrod described as a mighty ruler, city builder, associated with Babel, Erech, Akkad. Many scholars believe that Babel was led by Nimrod's dynasty, not all humanity. Why scattered languages at all? Because Babel wasn't just a tower. It was centralized control, self-salvation, and defiance of God's command to to spread out. Genesis 9 and 1, be fruitful and fill the earth. Genesis 11 and 4, so we may not be scattered. Which was a direct disobedience. Did God confuse Noah's language too? The Bible does not say that nor his immediate family was affected. Most scholars believe that language confusion applied to those who built the building. Why isn't there a dominant culture today? Because the Babel failed. God prevented permanent human unification under pride. The Bible theme was Eden, unity under God, was broken. Babel, unity without God, was shattered. And the Pentecost, Acts 2, unity through God, language retained and meaning restored. Acts 2, language were not erased, they were understood, and that's intentional. So what actually happened? Putting it together. The flood was known. Noah was alive. A powerful group tried to control humanity, prevent dispersion, and security through immorality and fame. And God disrupted that power, not communication itself. Humanity scattered into the nations and cultures developed separately, not uniformly. Theological messages would say that Babel teaches human unity without God becomes tyranny, and God values diversity under righteousness. And that's why no single empire lasts forever. Every world-dominating system has collapsed, and Scripture warns against one world pride for that reason. Why God makes everyone a sinner because of Adam and Eve? God did not make everyone a sinner as punishment. Humanity inherited a broken condition, not personal guilt. What the Bible actually says in Romans 5:12 was sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin. And in this way, death came to all people because all had sinned. The key detail was death spread because humans also sin, not because God assigns guilt at birth. Theological views was inherited corruption. Humans inherit morality plus inclination towards sin, not Adam's personal guilt. Each person is judged for their own choices. That's Ezekiel 18:20 that says the son shall not bear the guilt of the father. Inherited guilt, later in doctrine, developed mainly by Augustine in the 4th and 5th century, influenced by Western Christianity. Not explicitly stated in Scripture, Judaism, Eastern Christianity, and early church fathers rejected inherited guilt. And the plain truth is Adam and Eve didn't doom humanity. They opened the door to death, suffering, and moral struggle. Humans walked through it themselves, though. When and how did the rapture enter the Bible? It didn't, at least not as taught today. Where it comes from was 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 7, caught up to meet the Lord in air. The word rapture comes from Latin, caught up. But when modern rapture teaching appeared in the 1830s, John Nelson Darby develops pre-tribulation rapture. And in 1909, the Schofield Reference Bible spreads it. And in the 1900s to present, it was popularized in evangelism. No early church father taught a secret rapture. There is no rapture. What really happens? So biblical sequence is the resurrection of the dead. Christ returns visibly for judgment and restoration of creation. That's in Matthew 24, 1 Corinthians 15, and Revelation 21. Caught up in air, citizens went out to meet a returning king, then escorted him back to the city. So believers met Christ, returned with him, and that was a renewal of earth. In Revelation 21, New Jerusalem comes down. It was not an escape, it was a restoration. And is God the devil? Absolutely not. The Bible is very clear about that, okay? James 1:13 says, God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone else. John 1:5, God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. Why people ask this? Because God judges, allows suffering, destroys evil systems, but judgment isn't evil. A judge isn't a criminal, and a surgeon isn't a violent, and a fire that purifies isn't the same as a fire that destroys. Is Jesus the devil? No. It's explicitly rejected. Okay? John 88 said Jesus calls Satan a liar and a father of lies. Hebrews 1:3, Jesus, the exact representation of God's nature. Okay? Why confusion exists is because Isaiah 14 uses the morning star imagery, which is what which was Lucifer's understanding. In Revelations 22 calls Jesus the bright and morning star, which was similar to Lucifer's when Lucifer fell. Did God have a wife in Scripture? In the Bible, no literal wife, even though there is a lot of speculation into this, which we're going to talk about. But Isaiah 44:6 says, I am the first and the last. Besides me, there is no God. Even though El in the Bible means multiple gods. And whenever he said, let us make them in our image, it implied that there was multiple. Okay? But there's an important nuisance. Example of El and Asherah, or Asherah in Canaan, Zeus and Hera, and Odin and Frigg. Asherah in Israel, archaeology shows some Israelites believed that Yahweh had a consort, which was Asherah. God repeatedly rejected this. In 2 Kings 23, Jeremiah 7, this was an apostasy, not God's design. So the divine feminine, what exists, was the wisdom from Sophia in Proverbs, the spirit of Rosh, grammatically feminine in Hebrew, Shekinah, God's presence, and their attributes, not spouses. So that's interesting. Why does God reject a divine wife? Because biblical monotheism teaches God is complete, not gender dependent. Genesis 1:27 says humanity is male and female. God is beyond both. Putting it all together, humans were not born broken, not guilty. Rapture theology is recent. Bible teaches resurrection and restoration. God is not the devil. Jesus is not the devil. God did not have a wife, as far as our Bible translation understanding the way that is specifically translated. Okay? But cultures have tried to give him one. That being said, you guys, always worship in spirit and truth. Thank you so much. Stay blessed, never stressed, with much peace, much power, much love, much light, and of course, much joy. See you guys next time.